Okay, should be getting very close to joining the rest of the world on YouTube, live and free. Learn to trade. That's what it's called. And my name's Jeff. I'm joined by Ash, who's making a guest appearance for the week after I excommunicated him yesterday. G'day, Ash.
Yes.
Sorry
How
about
you doing,
yesterday,
buddy?
buddy. It was my fault, not yours, obviously.
Oh, not at all. Not
He
at all.
was
Not a
awake,
problem in
guys.
the
He was
slightest.
actually out of bed. It was a technical issue with our communications here that
Yes.
I nearly swore, but I won't do that.
I was out of bed and trading. So right. So well, the market's just open, mate. Oh no, it's not. What's going
No,
on?
not
No,
yet.
market's not open. Do you know what? I just saw a burst of upside in the FTSE, and I assumed it must be open. So
Oh, you
we
liked
probably
it,
should get
don't
on
you,
top of
when
it.
you see that little?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in a couple of trades on the FTSE, which I can show you guys in 1 second. I'm just going to try this, mate. Just let me know if this is playing.
Okay. Is it The Sound of Silence by Simon and Garfunkel?
That didn't play, did it? Okay, let's
No,
try
no,
this.
all I've got is silence. So no, answer no. It did not.
Okay, so that's the next challenge that we've got.
There you
All
go.
right, well let's have a quick chat about trading instead, as we're about to open up.
All right, I've got the FTSE chart up here,
Great.
and I'm assuming you might have taken some profit around about the monthly pivot area, and maybe even bought back into that.
I did. I actually took profit before that, but a little bit lower down, and I bought a little bit lower down as well. So I switched.
Nice.
There's a little if you was to switch that to an hourly chart,
Yep.
then actually there's a little head and shoulders, inverted head and shoulders down there, that I got on board with. It's not very clean, not the very lowest point, but you can see that it pops up, and then as it comes down, it just comes down one more time, and then gives us that right shoulder.
Yep.
Not that clean, but there was just something of a higher low, and there's a trend line down there as well. So I bought on the trend line.
Yeah, it's all
Um,
there.
yeah. So I bought on that point there. I've actually protected a position just as we closed up yesterday. So I'm in balance at the minute, and I'm in balance because I want to see what's going on. I'm looking for a little bit more upside. That gap needs to be closed before I'm going in heavily short. But I am interested in the short. Really, I'm not that keen on the long wholesale. I think that there's still some downside in this market. But I wonder whether we buy into the Fed, and I wonder whether we might even buy into the Bank of England rate decision tomorrow. So that is what I'm waiting on, just to
Yep.
see what happens. I just wanted to protect the upside a little bit with a bit of hedging as well. So my positions are in balance, but so the profit to the upside is banked already. But there's still a position open to see if there's any more going. But I am, as I say, looking probably for downside, but maybe not until Friday. We've got FOMC today at 7. We've got Bank of England out on Thursday, so that kind of leaves me until potentially Thursday or Friday before I'm actually looking to trade this load up, if you like, short. That's when
Yep.
I'll be looking a bit further down. So I think a bit
Like
of
it to get
easing
up
up.
to here, maybe
Um,
close
Let
the
me
gap,
see what.
get up to the weekly pivot.
Oh, yeah. Now, what the target that I'm really kind of going for is if you draw the trend line on the 17th of January and bring it down to the 23rd, then that kind of gives me the area that's the highest point.
Yeah, hang on. I've just got my control panel there. I've got to move it because I can't see the 17th. Righto, now I can.
Yeah, just there. Yeah, highest possible point. So if the weekly pivot and that trend line were to match in a day or so, which would probably leave us to Friday, then that would be the perfect point for me to go short. That's what I'll be looking at.
Right, okay. Let's get to the pound trade. We've just opened, so we've got a candle to trade. We got a lot closer yesterday, but that's as good as it got. Interestingly, I've had Mark has done a big back test on this, and the results are extremely good over time. So the drawdown that we're currently experiencing is whilst not completely out of character, it is in terms of, pardon me, in terms of overall performance. So let's trade this quickly. New order. Our entry short will be at 12996. Let me get that right. 12996. And it is a sell stop. Got a couple ideas today. 12996.
So there was Mark's done a back test on this. We're going to get to that too, are we?
Yeah, we won't do it today.
Okay.
But we will get there. And the stop loss is going to be at 130.38. And we reverse that for the sell order. Okay, for the buy order rather. All right, so the sell order is in place. There's the sell order stop loss. Let me see if I can remember all those numbers and do it all again for a buy. We've got about 3 or 4 weeks to go with this before we call time and analyze it and then come up with the strategy. Price was 38, 130.38. Does that make sense? I think so. And 129.96 if my memory serves me correctly. Okay, that one is a buy. So there is our order, or there are our orders. Short at 129.96 with a stop loss at 130.38, and Vicky Verky long at 130.38 with a stop loss at 129.96. That is the position. I was going to update the charts overnight, but I didn't quite make it that far. What I did do is update our entries. So yeah, look, I'll try to promise to do it for tomorrow, but yeah, things get away from me every day, it seems, at the moment. We're in the middle of summer, of course, and everyone wants their bamboo plants in the ground. So very, very busy over this part of the world at this point in time. So there is the pound trade having an absolute shocking run at the moment, I've got to say. And those of you who are in the room, I remind you that this is still in beta mode. Although I am trading it on a live account, I would suggest that it is still in beta mode. So it's far from a strategy at this point. It's close, but we need to obviously get a good handle on what has caused the big run of losses, and try and arrest that. I've really got some easy, quick fixes to that in terms of, okay, don't trade into daily pivots, for instance. Don't trade at resistance or support. Very, very things that you can really cut a lot of these losses out very, very quickly. So I'm of no mind to panic just yet, despite the fact that our drawdown is substantial since the beginning of the month. January just hasn't been a great trading arena, I don't believe. Although Ash has now picked it up and run with the ball and going really, really well. Mate, I'll just a couple of things that I am looking at. My best one today is this one. And guys, those of you in the room, we are going to produce something like this in a brief format that will be both Ash and myself will be looking at doing these daily. And really what we're hoping to do here is give you a good idea of where there is money to be made in the market. So I've chosen Aussie Kiwi today, and two ways to look at this one for me. I'm definitely a bull, We also have had some good Aussie news today. Or was it yesterday? Might have been today. And CPI figures. That was today, I think. So I'm suggesting that if we can get back down to this level, there's a good opportunity to take a run up to the monthly pivot and this trend line, which is not that evident on that chart, but there it is right there. I like the fact that we're at a very, very strong support level. I like the fact that we've got an obvious target above us. And I do like the fact that we've got a really untested daily pivot. So all of those things combined, I think there's an awesome buy area right here. And I think that is definitely the way I would like to trade it. There's a high risk entry here as it comes to the bottom of the range, as I've got it anyway. You've got to get your stop loss well underneath the daily pivot if you're going to take that option. However, my preference is most definitely to wait for the setup at the daily pivot. That will obviously be on a smaller time frame where we'll be looking for things like trend lines or trade lines coming through. This is another good reason for me to be thinking high or low in this point. Gets me a really nice entry long. Really looking forward to the setting up if it does. But we do need some trade lines. There's no question about that. And the one thing that would concern me is if this particular scenario takes place and we come back below here, then retest that trade line. That would instigate a thought process in my tiny little brain that says this is going short at least to the daily pivot, maybe to the lows here, because that would be a very clear false break scenario. However, if it fails to close below that, then I may not get the opportunity to trade from here or here. It may just bounce and go from here. So that's the concern that I have with that particular scenario. Otherwise, I'm just an Aussie bull for the day, and don't take that as a long-term scenario. It's definitely not that. But
I'll tell you something I was thinking, actually, mate, is that since we started doing the pound trade, we don't really talk about the pound generally. You know, it's just we do the pound trade and forget the actual trading the pound just as a general chart. Is that something?
Yeah, I did have a look at it yesterday and pointed out that we were at this same level that we've been at many times before, which is not only a horizontal level, it's also a trend line.
Yes, it is. It looks like a neckline as well.
Yes, absolutely. And I said if price hits this level, it may well be a good bounce opportunity because it's a very strong level right here.
Yes, it is.
So very difficult to trade, in particular short, because it's got a lot of work to do to get through here. But again, I said if that were to be the case and we got to close below this level, look out, because this could go very quickly and dramatically down to the 120s. I'm still watching that area very closely, because when you do get a strong level like this, something will happen. There will be a burst away from here in some shape or form. And at this point, to me, that looks to be long. But things can change quickly here. As I say, a close below any of those levels on a daily chart is going to get me interested in looking at the shorts. This line here is a case in point. It's been broken and retested. Now, it took a long time to retest it. Then you got a bull bar. You'd call that a morning star, Ash?
I would call that a yes. Yeah, that's a really good morning star, actually.
Yep.
Not a really classic.
Yep. So the back test, if you like, of this trend line in conjunction with that leads me to the conclusion that we're going to get a bounce here of some kind. So I'm a little bit bullish on the pound. And if I haven't done that in the previous days when we are doing the pound trade, my apologies, because it's always worth looking at the pound. And Ash likes to look at the pound because it gives him a good guide as to where the FTSE may finish up during the day. So what are your thoughts on it, mate?
Well, on the pound, we Do you know that after all this stuff for the last 3 years of talking about it, we haven't even mentioned Brexit, which actually happens on Friday.
Thank God for that.
Yeah. So we finally clear that story away from the slate. So yeah, Brexit happens on Friday. I think the fact that we've got an interest rate decision as well on Thursday makes the pound quite interesting. You know, that's the reason I was mentioning it. I think it's probably worth looking at. I don't know if you want me to take a quick look at it now.
I'll stop share, huh?
Yeah, I've got it, mate. Seemed to work for me this time. Yeah, really interesting one with a pound, because I think when it came down to it, I was talking to somebody about this last week, and I was saying really the short is the interesting trade here, and we were down here, and I said really we need to pop up to this level and then look for the short, and it went through there. But I think what's the interesting for me is that it's holding. Now, I don't know whether today things change because of the Fed. You know, we've really been waiting for things with a pound to develop. So we know Brexit's happening, so that's a really a non-story from here on in. And you know, there'll be a huge change for that to stop now, which is you know, pretty impossible. So we knew Brexit was happening, but the interesting thing was, as Jeff said, we got this neckline down here. It might even be a bit further back, looking at it. Yeah, just a little bit further back. It's all the way down here. So we got this neckline, maybe even there. Let's put it from there. Got this neckline, and the interesting thing was, I mean, that looks pretty even as a head and shoulders pattern. So there is some negativity here. There is some distribution going on here. But the interesting was, as it came down to this point, the bounce was highly likely because of the interest rate decision not yet being made. Now, the question really today is, are we likely to get a significant bounce? Because in many respects, we're just in a range. You know, that's really all that's going on. I mean, there's some fairly vicious moves, and you know, maybe breaking out of this area here looked like we're breaking the range, but we're really just in a range, and it's finding where that range is. I mean, it's proving to be a bit of a challenge, but it may well be that this is the range now. So breaking from here to the upside would obviously prove to be fairly positive for the pound, and breaking down, I don't think it'll be hugely negative, but we are obviously going to get some further downside pressure. The question really comes on Thursday: do they or don't they move? And I would have thought the answer is probably no, but there's a possibility that they do. You know, there's a chance that they could actually move interest rates on Thursday. And if they were to do that, you know, if they lower the interest rates, then the pound is obviously going to sell off. I would suspect pretty hard. Look at this on a longer term time frame. Look at this head and shoulders pattern. I mean, there's a lot going on here. Let's have a look at this bar as well. You see, that's interesting, isn't it? Because that really suggests that it needs to get through these lows and beyond to really get on its bike. You know, we could see some downside. We kind of got to make sure we don't get caught up in this small little area here, because this looks to me like it could be a fairly important trend line. It's a little steep on the weekly, but it is there. You know, these are weekly kind of areas of potential bounce. Definitely a minor trend line going up there. So it needs to break down this particular trend line for me. I think if it takes out this trend line, I wouldn't be so worried about it holding up at these lows. And what I'd look for at that point is probably a breakdown. And I think this is probably the timing for the pound. You know, this is probably the best way to time the pound. I look for it to break down and come and test this area down here. Come and test that area down there to start with, and then on the bounce back up again, take it in probably something similar to this price, and then see if we can actually get a decent move to the downside. So I think that this the way I'm looking at this chart, I think there's chance for this to develop, mate. And I think if it does, there may well be a nice clean entry to the downside. I think trading it here short is riddled with problems because of this lower trend line, and trading it long, it's just, well, trading it long, as I say, at this stage is not the worst thing in the world. But what if it's actually a long down here? So it might actually come down a little bit further. This line here, I think, is kind of the fly in the ointment. So I think that this line needs to be either tested or broken for us to really be confident of which way we're going to trade the direction of the pound.
And of course, there's two likely, well, two different scenarios, or are there four different scenarios? One, the Fed stays the same.
Yeah.
And the pound cuts.
Yep.
Two, the Fed cuts, the pound stays the same.
Yeah.
Three, they both don't do anything. And four, they both cut.
I mean, I would have thought three is probably the most
likely. More likely, isn't it? Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
But I would think any one of the other three moves this market substantially.
Oh, absolutely, and that's the key, isn't it? You know, it's the substantial moving of the market which could be key. And I would have thought if they both hold, then dollar strength is more likely because of the situation with the coronavirus. So, you know, the dollar's just a little bit safer.
Yes, definitely. Yep.
So I would have thought that I don't think it's going to be significant. I don't think the pound would move significantly, or neither would the dollar. I think we probably stay within this range. But if there was, you know, movement on either side, you see, the other thing is there may well not be movement, and what might cause at least a little fluctuation in one of them is what the Fed says it is to do. If it's not going to utilize a rate cut, what other policies will they implement to help the market out? I think that could be quite an interesting story as well.
I think it's also interesting that the market doesn't seem to, or is it? I don't know. If I look at the daily chart on the pound, I think, okay, when do we start thinking that? What are the numbers? 036 or something, aren't they? From memory for tomorrow, from last month rather. Yeah, 036. So one more has voted for an interest rate cut than did in the previous month. So the trend, if you like, for the MPC votes is that there is certainly potential for a cut.
Yeah.
There's only two more people have to be kind of talk into that, and suddenly you've got an interest rate cut.
Yeah, so, I totally agree, mate.
Yeah, I wonder if the market, the market has really had a few bob each way on that. I think because generally you'll find that a couple of weeks out from this announcement, the market puts its claim on what it thinks is going to happen. We've kind of had a week up and a week back. So, and still we're at a resistance and support level more than resistance. So I don't think the market's got a clue, frankly.
I agree, mate. Now, just as we're talking, I wouldn't mind just putting a trade in the market here.
Go, mate.
And I'm only going to go in. I'm going to go in light because what my idea is to scale in effectively, and I want to try and get this high here. So I'm going to go in at 74.50. Now that's going to be 14 above where you are. So you're going to be 75.15, I would suspect. 75.15, something like that. 75. Yeah. 75.15 for your one. Yep. Not on the futures if you're interested in. Now, the thing with it is that so 75. I'm at 74. 74.50. So I'm going to put that in there. Now the thing with it is that I'm trading this in two spots, or if you like, three. So really, what you need to do to start with is work out what your 1% is to this point up here. This is your ultimate stop, and you're spreading 1% over three trades here. I'd like to see the gap as well. See what happens at the gap. I quite like this area here. So just check out where your gap is. Mine is 50 pips above where we are now. So 50 pips above where you are is going to be around about 75.52 or something. So there's one at 75.15, one at 75.52, and then the final one will go up here. So 1% spread amongst 3 trades. Now, the only reason I'm doing that is that I'd be surprised if this market manages to pick up from here. If it does, it does. We lose our 1%. That's just the way it's going to be. But I'd be surprised if the market picks up from here. However, I don't really know where it's going to hold. I mean, to have a really good run to the downside, it needs to close this gap. But it may not get that opportunity. It depends how bearish people are feeling, which is why I want to go in and scale in here. Scale in here. The gap close is another point to call, and then just above on the trend line is the next one. So that's the idea, mate. I'm going in 3 times. I'm not going to put the other 2 trades in just yet. I want to see what happens with this one first and get triggered on, because obviously everything's up to what's the word? Manipulation. You sometimes you have to manipulate a trade as it's moving. There might be a slightly different choice made. And to be quite honest, if I was completely frank, I don't really want to get into the market before 7 p.m. Tonight anyway. Mm-hmm. But I just wonder whether we're just held caged under here until then. I'm gonna edge my way in anyway.
Happy days. Do you want to repeat that first entry level?
First entry level is going to be 75.15.
Okie dokie, got that, guys. If you want to follow that one, 75.15 is that sell level for the FTSE.
Yep.
Now, we've got 8 minutes to go before the close of the 30-minute candles. Should I have a little squiz around the place and see what's available?
Yeah, have a little look around, mate. I'll fix some other of these trades.
Roger D. Okay, now you'll have to stop, I think. Oh no, okay. Looks to be okay. Yep. Looks to be okay. Those of you who are not aware, I am strictly a currency trader, and on the intraday charts, I do not trade the first candle of London session, apart from this London breakout trade, of course. As such, all I'm doing is waiting for the next candle. So I do get interested in the next candle. Not really interested in trading dollar yen at the moment, but I wanted to go to that chart to show you where we stand in this trade that we took.
Sorry, not 75.15. Cancel that order. Not 75.15. It's a bit higher than that, actually. It looks like another 10. 75.22. Sorry.
All right, mate. No worries.
You shouldn't have been triggered in.
Yeah. 75.22 it is.
Yeah.
Okay, so dollar yen, the trade that we took as a result of the previous week's, not last week, but the previous week's bar and trading underneath that, we're in the market. We got a gap. The gap looks to have closed at this point. If I go to the daily chart, and we are in bounce mode at the moment. That gap has now closed. Wouldn't surprise me to see price get back to the weekly pivot here. And if it did and gave me another good sign, that being a reversal bar, I may well scale into this again. I'll keep you posted on that if it happens. But if you're following that trade, which is actually on the weekly chart trading this bar, stop loss above it, that's, as I say, is retracing at the moment. Wouldn't surprise me if it goes back to the weekly pivot. And there I will look for a second opportunity to trade it from there. So that's pretty much that in a nutshell. Euro Kiwi, we're now out of that trade, as I said, having only taken one lot of profit here, and that's about all it gave us. What are we looking at now? Well, we're looking at bounce, 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 bounce. This is the kind of stuff that I like, and I would be looking at trading that off the top there. But I need to see something that's far better than this consolidation that I'm seeing at the moment. So I'm no interest in this at present, except to say, I suppose, that this consolidation is at a very key level. Go to the daily chart there. You can probably see, well, just use the price action line. Well, it's a little bit lower than that, actually, isn't it? So there's probably the key level through there somewhere, with the lows and the highs going through here, the lows through here. Wouldn't surprise me at all if this actually takes off. Interesting, very interesting. This could break either way. I like this scenario where we've got high test bar, high test bar, high test bar. What I don't like is the next resistance level is probably bang dead ahead of us. So if I were to trade that long above that bar, you'd be knocking your head on a brick wall. So it doesn't interest me at this point. If I do see, as I said before, the opportunity to trade it back to the downside, then I'd be happy with that. What do I need to see? I probably need to see price get below this level, then come back to it. That's probably what I need to see to get short. So break the monthly pivot area, come back and retest that 68, let's call it 68.05 or 68.10. It's there that I would look to play it short. So that's Euro Kiwi. Aussie dollar, look, very, very difficult to be bullish, the Aussie dollar, in fundamental terms, apart from the fact that we had good CPI figures today. It was today, wasn't it? Let me just check on that. It is the 29th, and we did have good CPI figures today, quarter on quarter. 0.7 versus a 0.6 forecast and a 0.5 previous. So the trend is good there. And the trend mean met all expectations. So not over the top. Let's go throw a party type news, but certainly positive. And let's face it, the Aussie could do with some positive news. The market seems to have had a little bit of a say on that, but gee, it's come back very, very quickly. Has it not? If it actually went anywhere. There was a tiny rally which went back to yesterday's daily pivot, but we've come back to today's daily pivot, which is significant for me because I always like to see that occur. I don't know if I'm bullish against the dollar, to be fair, and that's why I've chosen a currency that's more on the slide than the dollar to trade this today. And we go back to the Aussie Kiwi, as I said before. I think that's the one for me if I am to trade the Aussie long today on the back of that good news. Two ways to look at this. We've had a break of this line here. We stopped at the weekly pivot predictably after the good news on the Aussie settled down. We failed to break that resistance level, which is the weekly pivot. Now we've come back to the breakout area, if you like, which is that trend line. So two ways to look at this. If we do get a close back underneath here in an hour and a half's time, which is when the 4-hour candles will close, it kind of gives me the indication that maybe we're not done with the downside. But if we close above there, it reverses that bias, if you like, and I'll still be looking for a long. And that's the area. This is the area here that I'm talking about. So if it breaks underneath here, in particular, if the next candle retests that level, there's downside here for me. And that's kind of where I'd be at with that. But that's not how I analyze this altogether. How I analyze this altogether is that we're going to have this base followed by a higher low. And if we get that higher low, then I'd be looking to trade it long back to here. Because I guess not only of the balance of slightly positive news for the Aussie, but we're at a very, very strong support level, massively strong support level, where we've rejected this level many, many times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in the last 3, 4 years. We've tried hard to get below it, but every time we've snuck below it, we've bounced straight back above it. Of course, there is room for this to go and test the absolute lows, of course, which I guess reside in that vicinity at 102.75-ish, let's say. So 70 pips below here is definitely on the cards. But I'm prepared to risk a small amount to go long here, and if I'm wrong, risk a larger amount to go long at that point. So that's kind of where I'm at with Aussie Kiwi, and I think on the back of reasonable news today, now's the opportunity to actually to test that base of that of that consolidation. So Aussie dollar, no, but Aussie Kiwi, yes, I'm okay with that. Euro dollar, okay, we've got new candles on the 30-minute chart, so let's go and see if that's viable, given the assessment that I've just given you. Interesting that it didn't close below the trend line. I quite like that. Is that a tradable opportunity for me? No, not really. Why? Because of the aforementioned level here. This is where I want to go long, here or here, preferably here, but here maybe. So I do want to see that higher low. There's no question. Maybe this is it, and maybe I'll miss it. But yeah, here's where I see the levels. These two here. It's not the worst, is it? The only thing I would say, if you're thinking of entering here long, and probably most of you aren't because it's pretty much a counterintuitive trade, you're going to have a bit of a struggle to get back through the weekly pivot, I believe, if you trade from here, because the nature of pivots is that the daily pivot is very, very key. And whilst you could say that it has been tested, I disagree with that. I think price has just shot straight through it. And that's why I'm very hesitant to go long here. I do want to see that tested before I do. So that is my position at the moment on the 30-minute chart, Aussie Kiwi. Yes, possible, but high risk if you want to enter now long. Going back to the euro, bias-wise, I can't say I'm bullish because I'm not, but I definitely see the opportunity for this to come back and test the weekly pivot, or retest the weekly pivot, and or the backside of that trend line that it broke yesterday. Or was it the day before? Or was it the day before that? What chart am I on? Okay. It was last week, of course, last Thursday that it broke through there. No real retest of that. So that's completely on my mind, as is an untested weekly pivot, as is the level that we're at. So I can't go short here. Am I willing to trade it long? Always, absolutely always, if it presents itself. So let's have a look at that on the 30-minute chart and see how we do it. Well, because we are trending short, and clearly we are trending short, let me go back and show you why that's clear. That is very clear. And I need, in that instance, to get some form of reversal pattern. And you could say that we have that. I don't know if that qualifies for a morning star, but it'll do me. There's certainly the hint of a head and shoulders here. It's rough as, but it's potentially there. So if you consider that to be a reversal pattern and that to be a higher low in construction or under construction, maybe there is an opportunity to go long here. That wouldn't satisfy my my appetite to go long here, though. I want to see something broken, some resistance broken, maybe through there. So I'd probably need to see price get up to here, break it, and come back and retest the confluence area. That would get me interested in trading it long, but at this point in time, absolute speculation as to where that's going and where it's headed. As you can see, the pound is in let's wait and see mode at the moment. Wait and see what, surely not tomorrow's interest rate announcement at this point. But I've got to be a bull here, if only short term. I can only see the bounce off the backside of this trade line or trend line. I can only see this support level, and I can see this weekly pivot beckoning, saying, come get me. So I've got to be a short-term bull here, and I stress that it is only short-term. But I think that could carry us to test these highs and even the monthly pivot if it does take off. Pardon me. A lot depends on these interest rate announcements, as we've flagged. But gee whiz, this looks like a super strong level to me, and super strong levels generally produce super strong moves. Whether that's long or short is debatable, of course, and I can make a case for either way. And certainly, if these levels go I can certainly see that there will be bears jumping on that and jumping on it in numbers. So interesting place for the pound, as we've discussed. On the 30-minute chart, I'm a bull, so let's see if I can find a bull entry or a long entry. Answer is no at this point, and the reason is all we've got here is noise at the moment. Very, very tight range through Asia, as is often the case. Let me see if I can make a little bit more sense of it and put a trade line or two in place. Let's go with this one. Wow. Okay, that's showing me something I wasn't expecting. That's showing me the potential for this to go short again, but it's very, very hairy. There's no substance in these bars, I don't believe, at the moment. Volume would have been very low through here. Haven't had much since, so I'm not going to trust any of these bars. I think I'll just let it go if it's going to go, but my opportunity probably will come not off that line, but off this one, if it does come at all. So what I'd like to see is break, take out these highs, take out the range of Asia, then come back and retest it. Then I can place a long above here and be far happier with the potential for that to hit weekly pivot. So that's where I'm at with cable at the moment. Euro yen, yeah, look, not that interested. Aussie yen, because the Aussie has had a little bit of a rally already on the back of the yen, you're probably a little bit circumspect on this one. But the truth is, we have had a nice little tweezer bottom sitting here, and this is a potential higher low on the daily pivot. So that gives me some sort of confidence that there is a potential bounce here. Still got an open gap, and we've still got a daily pivot sitting up here. A lot will depend on coronavirus and latest developments there. If that was to, pardon me, get serious, far more serious than it is very, very quickly, then Aussie yen would be a currency pair that I would not like to be trading long, I can assure you. Any heightened risk from here drives this down below its lows. And that's why it's a very tricky currency pair to trade at the moment. Aussie dollar is very much a risk on currency, and the Aussie dollar is very much risk on, and the yen is very much risk off. So put those two together, and in a volatile and hostile environment, it's very, very difficult to put a whole lot of confidence in trading Aussie yen long. That said, technically, if this is to be a higher low, then there's every reason to think that you can get some money out of that short term. Wouldn't like to be trading it long term. I would have a look at that candle, but if it stays as a spinning top, then it's probably going to stay untouched by me as well. 30-minute chart may look a little bit different. That was the hourly chart I was looking at. So that does look a little bit different. And if you were bold and raring to go, there's your trade right there. Let me see if I am of that inkling. Okay. That's what I want to see. So the risk is not bad. The reward is reasonable as well. There are definitely worse trades to take than that. I'm going to risk a little bit on this, Ash. It's counter trend. Okay. Yep. It is counter trend. It's not a classic slingshot scenario, but I can see a trend line through here that's been broken and retested as well by that. So I don't mind this. There is a confluence area there. So we will take that as a long position. I'm not going to risk a whole lot because of what I've just said to you. I mean, this is a very, very high risk currency pair to be trading in a hostile environment, which this is, I believe, anyway. So we'll only go with half on this. It's a buy stop. The entry level will be at 73 73. 73.83. And the stop loss will be 73.58. Okay, there we go. So it's Aussie and long. And the levels are as I've just given you. So let's see how that pans out. If we do break below this trade line, and in particular, if we close below this trade line and take out where the stop loss is, then we'll cancel that order for sure. But until that happens, we'll leave this live and see how we travel. So it's Aussie yen long on a pending order. Aussie Kiwi, let's have a look at that 30-minute chart. We did have a look at that, and it's exactly where it was. The Aussie yen could actually cover this. As I said before, if we missed this long, then so be it. But the Aussie yen could well cover that if it does take off. And mate, that's about where I'm at.
Great stuff. Okay, well, I've had to lower down the target.
You'll have to come onto your microphone, mate.
Oh, sorry, guys. Yeah, I've had to lower down the target a little bit. Now, let me just bring this in for you guys. I will show you on this chart here. Now, the issue is that and the reason I got my numbers wrong initially is because IFS are showing a different level to AXI. So when we look at the this is the IFS markets here, 75.10 it's currently at, but when I look at AXI, it's at 75.05, which is why I got my numbers wrong. Now that's unusual. So I need to double check the AXI. But what I've done is I've lowered this down just a little bit. So it was at 75.22. Now it's at 75.19 instead. Now the reason I've lowered it down is that it's rejected already. So I'm going to try and enter here instead. That looks like where resistance is forming. So we need a bounce here. I think maybe a bounce sort of around this level just to try and get this number one more time. Could have probably lowered it down a bit earlier because when we look at this on the 5-minute chart here, let's take these levels out of the way just so we're not having to look at those lines. Yeah, when we see this here, it rejected it once and probably should have lowered it down during this bar, but I didn't do that. So I'm looking for one more bounce to the upside. It'll be a shame if we miss out on this, but that may just be one of those things that that happens. But one more drag to the upside, trying to hit these highs again, and we can look lower. So I've just lowered it down, just so everybody knows. 75.19 is the new entry level on the UK 100. And we are looking for downside. Now, it's got a good chance of getting back up there. There's no point in entering now. Yes, it could tank here, and if it does, then so be it. I mean, I can be a bit more comfortable because I've got a short in a little bit lower anyway, but I'm hoping that I can get you guys in as well, and I can add to my shorts. So I'm hoping that that we do get this this one more time. So one more look at this high. We can enter that. And it may still go through, and we'll still use the same strategy, but we can see here that there is quite a lot of weakness in this area, actually proving to be the case. So it may not come back, but let's hope for the best. No point in hopping in here. I think it's going to be too late. If you're going to be hopping in, you're going to need to wait for a break of this level and then a retest there, rather than diving in now. So that is where we're at, mate. And as I say, you know, looking at the futures, same deal. Just didn't quite get to this high here, but it was close enough. So I've lowered it down on the futures as well. So we are looking for a short, but we are just looking for the line to be attacked one more time before we can get that short in the market. Now, if it doesn't close this gap, in many respects, that's quite good, because it means that when we do eventually switch positions and go long, then there's a decent chance that this this gap will end up being being a glaring opportunity to at least close. Now, I don't know when or if that will happen in the next period, but for right now, if we can refuse the gap and just end up effectively gapping and holding the gap, then as I say, that's going to be positive for the longs later down the line. But for right now, we are looking for the short. So that's where we're at, mate. That's all I've really got as well. The pound continues to bounce. And I suspect we will probably continue to bounce right up until tomorrow, or at least until 7 o'clock tonight. But aside from that, we can't really do a whole bunch with that either. I don't know how that pound trade's going this morning. Have you been triggered in yet?
No, mate, no.
Okay. All right. We're still waiting on that as well. But this looks like a little bit of accumulation. It's a pretty sloppy looking pattern, but it's a little bit of accumulation going on down here as well. So maybe a little bit of upside with the pound, but I don't see it breaking out of too many levels. That area is going to be quite difficult as well, which is going to probably run right alongside here. So somewhere around about the one spot 304 may well be the upside run for the pound. But yeah, little bit choppy today, mate. Probably just about edging up. But I think this coronavirus is just making people very, very concerned. So getting into the market shorts is certainly my preference.
Okay, mate. Happy days. I'm going to share one more thing before we call it quits. And that, of course, is it being FOMC Eve. Let's call it FOMC Eve. I'm going to place I'm not going to place it because you have to be in front of the charts at the time to actually place this trade. It is my FOMC breakout trade, and what I'm looking for is to break the range of this week. So we're looking at 3 days trading at this point: Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. The range is pretty tight, so that suits me. There are a few caveats around the trade, however, that I will point out to you. And let me define the range, which is pretty clear. There's no argument here, I don't think. If we go to the 4-hour chart, that's where I find the range. And this is how I actually trade it. So today, yesterday, and the day before, very clear where this range is. There's the high and there's the low. I'll actually tighten that up just a little bit further and not use the highs, but use the opens and closes. So here's the range as I see it. Right there. And at this point, right there. A lot will depend, of course, on what today's candle does. And if it were to disappear 100 pips, then there's no way I'd trade this. But if it's going to stay exactly where it is, here's how I would trade it. Well, here's how I will trade it if I can drag myself out of bed at the time, of course. So I will look at this range, and I've got the high here as 10332. Let's call it 1033. I would put my entry 15 pips above that level. Now that's going to be super dangerous because it's going to be here somewhere. So let's put that in. 110.33, 110.48 is what I'm looking for. So there's the entry level. Let me just make that perfectly clear. There's the buy order. 110.48. Super dangerous, but that's again not the rule. The rule is 15 pips above the range and 15 pips below the range. So that range is going to change by the look of it anyway. Well, it may not. If this candle retraces, then fine. So the short entry will be at 1.0989. That took some working out in my head. 1.0989. So let's put that in. Cord. What a terrible color. Can't see a thing. Let's make it ruby red for short. 1.0989, which is right about there. Okay, so those will be my entries. And here's the thing, here's the way. It has to be this way. Otherwise, you can get yourself in horrible, horrible trouble. At whatever time the FOMC statement is, which is 7 o'clock in Britain, so that makes it 6 a.m. here in Australia, makes it 3 a.m. in Hong Kong and Singapore. You poor things. If you're getting up to trade that or staying up to trade that, maybe. Well, look, half of you on holidays, I'm sure, with the Chinese New Year. Do not take this trade if price is within or outside, rather, 10 pips of the daily pivot. So the daily pivot's level today is 1.1014. So 1.1024. A lot of lines on this chart, Ash, I know, but let's make that a different color. How's white? Size is okay. White, pure white. There we go. There's that one. And 10 pips on the other side will be, what did I say the level is? 1 point. Oh, show me. 1.1013. Now it's 1.4. Goodness me, make up its mind. 1.4. Okay. So the downside limit here will be 1.1004. I think. Too many maths problems to solve here. 1.104, which is pretty much where we are currently, right? That's the bottom of the range. Awesome. Yeah, that's okay. All right, so here's the entry. We're pretty much on the range. The entry will be at the top of the range. The entry short will be at the bottom of the range. Why? Here's the reason why you don't take the trade if price is outside of that zone. So the white zone I've got here, 1.1024, 1.1004. The reason is you've got a very high chance of being taken into the trade before the FOMC statement, and then it goes the wrong way if you are closer to these entry points, right? The entry points being up here. So you don't want to be outside that zone 1 minute before the FOMC statement, which is where you actually place this trade. 5 minutes in, no sooner. So price has got to be in that range. If it is, then place your entry here and your entry here. If one of them gets triggered, cancel the other, obviously, and away you go. When you get to 1-to-1 on your risk factor, which the risk on this trade will be 59 pips. Once you've got 59 pips in your direction, either way, take some profit off the table and then let it rip. Just let it run, because the FOMC statement, by its very nature, has got a high probability of beginning or continuing a trend. And that's exactly why this trade is profitable when it sets up and when it works. So don't even think about getting out for some time, but take profit at 1-to-1, just so you've got a little bit of safety in the market. Okay. There you go, mate. I hope I've explained that well enough for all to understand. And if you are awake at FOMC time, do not place this trade before that, because anything can happen in the meantime. As it is now, if this candle was to close here, then the range is extended and those numbers change. Okay, so that's just a demonstration. It's not absolute levels. There you go, buddy boy. We've got a few orders in the market. Let's see how the pound is traveling at this point. I suspect nothing happening. We'll have a look at the hourly chart, and no, we're going up and down in the one spot. That's okay, as long as eventually we do break out and we catch it to the right side. I'll be happy with that. The other one was Aussie yen, and nothing happening there either. We wanted an explosion through the high side of here and get us some money in the bank. That would be good. And Ash, your FTSE trade is doing what?
It is moving back up again towards the entry price, but it may not get there. But we're just hoping for the best at this, mate. At this point, mate, I still think it's got a good chance of attempting to get that line again. And actually, I think it's got a pretty good chance of going through. So I am looking for more than just a shade of upside here. I think we are going to enter into this trade and start off being a loser, but that is the nature of this. So you got to make sure that you have done your 1% properly, and we'll see how we get on. But it's just edging back up again. It's just attempting to go higher now. So hopefully we will get there, mate.
All right, mate. Happy days. And the other one, of course, there's plenty to look at today, as I said from the outset. Potential long from here on Aussie Kiwi. High risk, very high risk, that one. But there's a far better opportunity if price were to get down to here to the daily pivot on Aussie Kiwi. Then look for whatever setup you can find. For me, it'll probably be trade lines or trend lines or something of that nature as a confluence. But I think that's a potential trade as well. Don't double up your risk, though, if Aussie yen hasn't triggered at that point. You don't want to be too... Yeah, take me as a quote here. Do not overexpose yourself to the Aussie long at the moment. It's not a great idea.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Righto, let's get out of here, mate.
Cool.
We'll do it all again tomorrow, will we?
Great stuff. Yeah, same time, 5 to 8.
5 to 8. That's the date. Don't you be late, guys. Thank you for your company today, and we'll see you all tomorrow. Bye-bye for now. See you, buddy.
See you, dude. See you soon.